Do you remember where you were when you found out that now they're going to be making a movie?
Yes.
Based on where were you?
Manhattan Beach Country Club.
Jesus Christ.
I'll never forget. I was at the club, and I wasn't even a member yet back then. I was just someone's guest, and my phone rings, and it's my agent, Scott Lambert, saying to me, "You're not going to believe this, but there's a bidding war right now between Leo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, and both sides have said whatever one side pays, I'll pay 10% more."
So
I'm like,
their
holy
teams
shit!
Are bidding off
it's
on
public.
this.
That's public information.
Jesus
Yeah.
Christ.
So the next day, an article came out about it, that there was this big bidding war, and they made it like Brad and Leo were enemies, and it was just bullshit. They were just both bidding on the same project.
It
right?
helps you though.
Yeah, it was really interesting. It was a funny story. So what happened was, so the bidding kept going up and up that weekend. Every side saying, "I'll pay you 10% more." And there was actually also Mark Wahlberg wanted the picture. But back then, I love Mark Wahlberg. He was just he wasn't as big a star back then.
Right.
Now he's huge, right?
Now, but even while the bidding's going on, do you have a preference, like saying, I hope Leo wins it, or I hope Brad Pitt wins it?
Well, it was up to me. It wasn't winning it. I had choice. It was my
ultimate
choice. Oh yeah, my choice.
Who was your preference?
So I always loved Leo. I like Brad Pitt too. But I thought that Leo was better. And then what happened was Leo said, "Hey, I got Marty Scorsese. He's going to agree to direct it."
Done deal.
Done deal. And that was that.
Instantly.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? It's got to be nice that if somebody would to play your life, at least it's going to be Leonardo DiCaprio.
Not Danny DeVito?
Yeah.
And I love Danny DeVito, but
yeah, I would get like Jack Black.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Just
right?
something
Yeah,
like that.
It was a great thing. I had two really, I guess, of the best looking actors, right, and the most talented actors in the world. So it was pretty good. I was saying, I'm doing pretty good about this, So, yeah, it was amazing. It was an amazing moment for me. It was disbelief at that point. But, like, the funny part was that when I called a couple of when it started happening, my friends were like, "Yeah, that figures."
Makes sense.
So, like, what else would it be? Like, with your life has always been like this. Like, whatever you do, it's like no shock, like, that this is happening.
It's bound to happen.
Right. So, like, I was like, maybe that's true, but I'll tell you what, this is I knew it was an extraordinary thing.
And then what was prepping this with Leonardo DiCaprio? Like, do you guys just go out to lunch? Is he spending time with you?
About a year of a lot of time spent together. Just doing everything. Not just, some formal, something like that, just going out and hanging out, but then stuff formally, working on certain aspects, working with dialect coaches, going through the script line by line, dissecting every word, changing things, strategizing on certain scenes. I think the funniest story was when I was in his house, and Leo's never done drugs.
See, I would see him dabbling a little bit.
No, never done drugs. He drinks, but he's never done drugs. And he's like, "What does it feel like to be on a Quaalude? And what does it look like? How do I act?" I said, "Well, let me just give you an explanation." I take him through the different phases of a Quaalude high, starting with the tingle phase where your fingertips are tingling. Then there's this slur phase where you're slurring your words, but you don't care because slurring is okay. Baby slur, you slur, slurring's cool, right? Then you go from there to the drool phase where you're like talking and drool's coming out. But you're like, "Oh, baby's drooling, I drool, and that's good too." And then the last phase is unconsciousness. So I'm actually taking him through this, and I'm crawling on his floor. I go, and then he's like crawling on his floor, trying to mimic me. And his father walks. He's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" We're like crawling on the floor. He's like, "No, just acting." Yeah. Yeah.
And then to see, and like even talking to you, what's amazing to me is he nailed it.
He did.
I mean, was it weird to then see it then come to life?
It was, yes. I won't, I don't want to, so it's hard to recreate in this moment what I felt the first time I actually saw this on the screen. But before I saw it, my agent saw it. Well, it wasn't my agent, but my agent's wife, woman Alexandra Milshon, really well respected, a brilliant producer of movies and TV series. In fact, her dad's Arnon Milshon, who owns New Regency, so she, very, very well respected family, and she's the best. And she saw it before I did.
Before you got to.
I was overseas when the cut. There was a private cut that came out, and I was just away. I was on tour, and she was going to see it and in L.A., and I'm waiting for her, and she calls me back, and I said, "Well," she's like, I don't know what to say. She goes, "I cannot describe what I've just seen." She goes, "I'm out of breath. She goes, "Let me just promise you one thing. Your life will never be the same again when this movie comes out." She was like, she goes, I don't know how to quite describe it. It was so, I'm like, good, bitch? She goes, good, but it wasn't just good. It's like, I've never seen anything like it before.
Did you?
I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I just trust me. When you see it, you'll know. And then when I saw it, I was like.
You thought the same thing?
When it was over, I saw it with my wife at the time, and they're like, holy fucking shit. I felt, it was like the Matthew McConaughey when he went in the marker. She goes, holy fucking shit. That's how I felt. And it's still to this day, whenever I watch the movie or see scenes and he says my name, it still sounds weird to have someone else saying Jordan Belfort and it not being me. And but it was listen. Some parts were tough because they were fictionalized and they were things that I did that weren't true, that were terrible, like punching my wife in the stomach, which I never did.
Right.
But like I took that in stride. It was a fictionalized movie, and some, it was based on truth. Much of it was true. There was some parts fictionalized. But all in all, and those parts he had called me before. It was like a shock. He called me. He goes, "Hey, I want your permission. They want me to do this." He's very respectful, Leo. He's a great guy. And he's like, I want to make sure you're okay with this because didn't actually happen. I'm like, yeah, do what you got to do. I understand it's a movie, You
know what's amazing that I wanted to ask you? I heard Leonardo DiCaprio in an interview where he's talking about you, and he says that it's amazing and he's shocked that you're still alive going through what you went through. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do, in the sense that there's two sides to it. There's all the near-death experiences I had along the way with plane crashes and yacht sinkings and all the stuff. Then there's the sheer fact that I just didn't overdose.
So the yacht did sink.
Oh, yeah.
Son of a bitch. Yeah, you watched that sucker go down?
I did. Indeed, I did. It was much worse than the movie. That scene was really underplayed for budgetary reasons because it was a long, drawn-out, terrible, crazy process that went on for about 18 hours, and it was just wild. And the plane crashed as well. But it was a week later, not while I wasn't watching it crash as I was on the boat that saved us, but it crashed a week later. But I think, for me, when I looked at that movie overall, mostly it was like, I just can't believe that was my life, and it seemed normal at the time. At the time, so you say, well, did I make it? How did I live? I mean, at the time, it just seemed like I was putting one foot in front of the other and just living my life. It didn't seem that insane, because what you do is you surround yourself with other people who are living just like
that
you.
Are doing the same thing. Right.
Yeah.
And was there ever a time, like I think even, throughout the movie, you're kind of hoping to yourself, I know I was just like, okay, get out now. You know, you made your money, get out. Was there that time where you said?
I did, though. That's the fictionalized part. So the fictionalized part is there's the scene where the Jonah Hill character, right?
He was great.
He was great. Right?
Awesome.
The movie, Donnie Ace. His real name is Danny. They call him Donnie, right? And so basically, I'm saying, fuck it, I'm leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm staying. Right? The show. That's
which
not,
is like,
that's not true, though.
So that did not happen.
No, I'm not stupid. I left.
Right.
And I was running. This guy Danny took over the firm, and a lot of things that went on what he was doing, that was saying I was doing him. But also in that, the Danny character was like the catch-all character for all bad behavior. So in other words, what happens a lot in movies is they collapse characters. So they'll take 4 or 5 characters and they'll collapse it into one character.
One person, right?
Right? So that's the Danny character got the whole lot of stuff.
Brunt of everything.
Yeah, everything. So,
right.
Yeah. In some ways he was worse, and in other ways he wasn't as bad as that, because they just collapsed other characters' behaviors into him,
Right.
So but that iconic scene, which was a great scene, I gave that speech, and it was identical, that speech, and it's in the book. And then instead of saying the show goes on, I gave the mic to Danny and walked off, not into the sunset. Then I was running the firm from behind the scenes for about a year or so, and then I kind of faded away. I started running Steve Madden's Shoes, was my other company.
Right. So did DiCaprio or any of them tell you certain things would work better if we do have to fictionalize this, like even as far as the speech?
No, the point was that one speech where I said, fuck it, I'm not leaving. The show goes on, right?
When
I saw them, I'm like, I'm like, that makes me look like I'm an idiot. I'm out of control. I've lost my touch with reality. Like,
Right.
who the hell would stay when they can get away with it scot-free like that, right? But I understood why they were doing it. It wasn't designed to hurt me or make. They weren't doing it to try to screw me over. This actually made the movie a better movie because it kept the action in the boardroom. In other words, it just would made it more. If it was a TV series, which it's going to be, by the way, we're making it into a TV series.
Are you really?
Yeah, we are. Yeah. So in a TV series, you would draw that. You could do it. You could develop all these subplots. I'm leaving, but running it behind the scenes and all this sort of intrigue. That would be great. It's a whole season of how now I lift a firm and I'm still running it. In a movie, you don't have that much time. They want to keep the action in the same location. See me, degenerating into insanity, staying there. When in fact, I was degenerating into insanity, but in other places, in other ways. So there's so many different subplots.
Right.
One of the funniest experiences I have with Margot was the first time I met her in person, and I was with Leo and Jonah, and we were in a hotel room in New York, the Mandarin Oriental, and we were preparing. We were actually having dinner that night with the producers. So we were all dressed up, and then Leo's like, "Listen, Margot wants to meet you because she wants to talk to you about your ex-wife, and she wants to, kind of understand you and the character better." So I was like, "Great." So we were hanging out most of that day together, Leo and I and Jonah. And then at like 5 p.m., the phone rings. It's Margot. We're in a hotel room. Like, all right, send her up, and she walks in. And she's dressed like for a really nice dinner with high heels, short skirt, plunging neckline, done up makeup, the whole frickin' thing. And Margot is so beautiful. She's one of those girls that literally sucks the air out of a room. When she walks into a room with just males, it's like there was 3 males, and Margot walks like there was no oxygen. Like the room, like it was a fundamental shift in the fabric of the universe when she walked into the room. There really was. And we're like trying to keep a straight face here. Like she just walks in and she's just like so striking looking, right? And so she's like, oh, she gives me a big hug, and she's like, how are you? Great. And so Leo's like, listen, Margot, Jordan said you can ask me anything. She's like, oh, great. And Leo's like, just ask away. She's like, oh, my God, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. She takes a chair, and she pulls up a chair. She's maybe 3 feet across me. She sits down, crosses her long, bare legs. She has a high heel dangling, and she looks at me with this big blue eyes. She's like, so, tell me. She said, what was it about your wife that you like so much? What was it about her? I'm like, you're kidding, Margot, right? She said, no, serious. I'm like, this. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, Margot, this. She's like, oh, no. I mean, really. I mean, no. Was it a certain zest she had for life? Was it like a way? I'm like, no, Margot. I hated her. this. I despised every bone of her. Just this. She's like, no, really? I'm like, really, Margot?
Just go make the movie.
She's like, really? I'm like, really, Margot? Once this window passed, I was screwed. It was closed, and we couldn't get Marty to come back to the table. So what happened now? Now flash back to what I first said about passion, about your monetizing your passion. So now I'm in Mendocino writing and saying to myself, this is terrible. I hate writing, and I decided to become a speaker. So I make this conscious decision to start going out there and speaking. To make a long story short, ultimately, after some time, very hard work, I built this speaking business up and started making massive money again. It became very successful before the movie came out. And I was going all over the world, making millions and millions of dollars as a speaker and trainer, teaching sales and persuasion in a system called the Straight Line. So now, flash forward 2012, it's 5 years later, right? I'm rich again. And out of nowhere, I get a call from Leo. Buddy, you're never going to believe this. What? We're good to go. Marty's back in. We're going to make the movie now because I'm coming over to your house. Where do you – he goes, give me the address again. I forgot. I'm like, well, I live in a new house now, and I gave him my new address. The first time he came to my house, I was living in a tiny shack. I just got out of jail, right? And I was living in a tiny place, right? So I give Leo – when he comes to the house, it's a mansion on the ocean, on the beach. He walks in. He's like, what the fuck happened to you? What happened? How'd you get rich again? I said, I go around, I teach sales. He goes, I said, let me show you. So I put up a video on my TV of me speaking for like 5,000 or 6,000 people. And he starts looking, he's like, holy shit. Wait till Marty sees this. He sent it to Marty. They rewrote the entire third act of the movie. Now, so the movie now, there's an infomercial in there. There's all the sales training. It ends with sell me this pen. So what happened was
Leo was loving it.
Well, what happened was the point was the first draft, the one that Terry wrote, It ended with me in jail. The movie ended with me in jail. That was the fun, because that was my life. I just got out of jail, so that as the movie ended. Over those 5 years, I rebuilt my life, got wealthy again, and they changed the movie to reflect and made it a comeback story. So the movie, in those 5 years, I rewrote my own life story. Essentially, my life story changed while it was being made, and the movie was infinitely better as a comeback story. And what that did for my business, obviously, now ending with a seminar. So my seminar business then exploded.
Had to.
You get it?
Had to.
And it was my brand, The Straight Line, was on there. I teach, this system called The Straight Line. And it became this incredible movie that was embraced by people all over the world, and that's the story.
Do you, even just for me, even thinking about Leonardo DiCaprio now coming to your, how do you prep for Leonardo coming to your house? You put out chips and dip? I mean, it's just got to be so much shit rolling through your head.
Nah, Leo's just not like that. He's like a very average guy, This is like Leo's. It's not like that at all.
And getting that call from him, I mean, you had to be over the moon.
No, yeah, I was somewhat skeptical. Not that I didn't trust Leo, but just that it was just like it wasn't quite that. Like there were rumblings. There was a lot of rumblings over the years. It was always about Scorsese, not Leo. Leo was committed every step of the way, and he was always promising me he would get it done. Now, we had many, many directors that wanted to do it. We had Todd Phillips, wanted to direct it. I love Todd Phillips.
Right.
Okay, who did Joker, okay, and did Hangover. And he got it, Todd Phillips. I met Todd. He understood the comic edge of it, right? Because it was a comedy. It was sort of ended up being, right? And dark comedy was a comedy for sure, right? Ridley Scott wanted to direct. We actually had a deal. We had a deal with Ridley Scott. He signed off on it. Then they wouldn't let him out of doing that movie Prometheus. So it was like there was some rumblings, and every rumbling always was with Leo as the lead. It was never about Leo. It was always Scorsese. But Marty was really intent on doing this picture Silence, and Marty works very slowly. So I think he did in all those years between when he ended up doing Shutter Island. I think he only did Hugo, maybe.
When he was coming out with those movies, because obviously there was a big halt put on it, would you be lying to say when those were coming out, you were kind of hoping that those bombed so that he keeps kind of saying, I should have done Wolf of Wall Street, should have done Wolf of Wall Street?
No. First of all, Marty Scorsese, there are no bombs.
Yeah, that's a very
He
good
just
point.
does not bomb. And it's just a question of, like when he did this picture Silence, and it wasn't a commercial big success. It wasn't meant to be. Marty, I think Wolf is his most successful movie of all time. But there's something interesting about Marty is that what he does, I think, better than anyone in the world is that Marty puts up characters that are not being judged. In other words,
What do you mean by that?
In other words, I don't know about you or the listeners here, but the one thing I hate more than anything when I'm watching a movie or a TV series is when they tell me how to feel. Don't moralize to me. Don't telegraph. Don't have the kid kill a cat. So, I'm supposed to hate that kid.
Let the viewer be
Let me see things as they really are in life and then make my own decisions. So when I'm watching a movie and the characters are obviously bad and obviously good, that's who I should love, that's who I should hate, and they can do it with one look. It could be one look, one tiny thing. All they had to do with the Wolf of Wall Street was have me do one thing wrong, differently, and I'm an unredeemable asshole.
Right.
But Marty understands that life is far more complex. There's no absolute good. There's no absolute bad. Good people do bad things, and bad people do good things. So what Marty does is I'm going to put characters on display, and as they really are in life, and let the audience decide how they want to feel.
Right.
That's
what you had to
That's
appreciate.
why people connect to his movies so deeply, because he could take flawed characters. I was a flawed character, no doubt about it. There was things I did that were reprehensible, but also things I did that were amazing. It was every person's dream, everyone's nightmare. They're saying that Marty Scorsese glamorized the use of drugs and glamorized Wall Street and obscene wealth, right? You know what? It's glamorous. He didn't glamorize it. It's glamorous.
Well, you know what's amazing, too, is like, you think the role Leonardo played, and you think, what you don't see is you kind of had to direct them as far as they had to be picking your brain while making this movie.
Well, Leo, literally,
but you're getting it from all angles.
He
you have
left
Jonah
nothing.
Hill.
Yeah, but he left nothing. Yeah, I met with all of them, but Leo left nothing up to chance. He prepared for this, and I think people don't know that. They say, "Oh, he's just so talented and he's handsome," but yeah, he is those things. But he works really hard. He takes things really seriously. Leo literally struggled over every single word in that script, literally with me and Marty going. It was his passion project, Leo. So it wasn't a normal movie for him. It was not like his other movies. You can ask him that. If you ever have the chance to interview him, he'll tell you it was not his. Leo's done every movie, and then there was Wolf of Wall Street was different for him. And he told it to me from the very beginning. He goes, "I'm gonna make this movie." He's like, "Just mark my. I promise." He looked me in the eye. He goes, "I'm gonna make this." There was times when it was very difficult to make because it's an R-rated movie. The shit's hitting the fan on Wall Street. The budget was coming in high, and Leo was like, "I promise you." Because he's attached to 100 films, and they're like saying, "Oh, Leo's doing this next week. Leo's doing this. He's doing that movie. This movie." He's like, "Just buddy, I promise you, this one is different."
And you believed him when he told you.
I
that.
did,
You
and
knew.
also whenever my friends would run into him, anyone I know would see Leo, they'd always come up to Leo and say, "Oh, I'm friends with Jordan." He was always very gracious about that. He would sit down and he'd say, "Just oh my God," and he'd always would say, "I am so excited. This is not my regular. This is my passion. I'm making this movie." So it was pretty obvious. Everyone knew that this was Leo's passion project.